It's all about Big Play Ray today. That's Rayshawn Jenkins. And remembering his impact on 2022 and what he can do for 2023. We'll talk about that in just a second here on Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Thank you all for joining me, Tony Wiggins, here on the Locked On Jaguars podcast. We're at your team every day, and we thank you for making us your first listen. A quick reminder that we are free to subscribe to on our YouTube page, that is Locked On Jaguars, and wherever you get your audio podcast, make sure you tap in every single day to make sure that you don't miss an episode. I'd like to say hello to our everydayers. What is going on? Glad to have you here with us. And if you're new to the show, welcome to the show. Hopefully you can become an everydayer as well. Here's what I want to talk about today. I want to talk about Rayshawn Jenkins and break it down all the way back to when he signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars after the 2020 season, and in between 2020 and 2021, and played that first year under Urban Meyer along with guys like Shaquille Griffin. What has Rayshawn Jenkins done to make himself stick? There were a lot of people that thought he'll be gone. And he, meaning Rayshawn Jenkins, instead of Shaquille Griffin. After year one, and Rayshawn hurt his ankle. I think he broke his ankle or hurt his ankle really, really bad. He got a couple of penalties. If you remember back, I think it was the San Francisco game, where he kept a drive going and did some other stuff out of frustration. And everyone was like, waste of money, waste of signing. And I always like to pause when we do stuff like that, because we never know the situation or the mental psyche that guys are going through, because they're having these weird years with weird coaches and all of that stuff. The irony, it turns out that the guy that left was Shaquille Griffin. It was not Rayshawn Jenkins. So we're going to talk about Rayshawn and his propensity to make big plays at big times, and why I think he saved the Jaguars season on more than one occasion, not just the obvious one that everyone is thinking about. So we're going to give him his flowers today and look at his impact on this team last year, and look forward to the impact that he has this year. Who does he remind me of? We'll talk about that in segment 2. We'll discuss the player who was a champion and has some familiarity with head coach Doug Peterson. We'll discuss the fact that he kind of resembles this guy a little bit with the way that he plays. And then we'll talk about the impact that he actually has on Andre Cisco. And I think it's a tremendous impact. Everybody knows the way I feel about Andre Cisco. I think Andre Cisco is an absolute superstar waiting to happen. And I think Rayshawn Jenkins will have something to do with that. We're making sure that that occurs. But first and foremost, talk about Rayshawn. Was with the Chargers. Of course, he played college ball at the University of Miami. And I don't remember him, even though I was a Florida State fan, and that's our rival. I just don't remember Rayshawn Jenkins. I'm gonna look up his number. I'm gonna look up his number real quick, and I hope he wasn't the dude that Cam Akers ran over, because I picked at that dude for a long time, and I don't think it's him. But while I'm typing, I'm telling you, the dude that Cam Akers ran over was number 22. So I'm gonna look up his college jersey number real quick to make sure we do some housekeeping. And this is normal research that I do, but I did not do it. I did not look it up. Let's see, 6'2", drafted 4th round. What was his jersey number with the Miami Hurricanes? Let me pull it up. Please don't let Rayshawn Jenkins be number 22. At least he wasn't. Well, they don't show it here, what his number was when he was at the University of Miami. They just say he's from St. Petersburg. Of course, he's a Florida boy, so we love that stuff. But I'm just trying to have some fun with that. But the thing is he wasn't. He was number 26. Good. He wore Sean Taylor's number. So he was not number 22. And that's good for me, because I didn't want to pick at the dude, man, because whoever number 22 was got absolutely whipsawed and all the other adjectives you want to think about against Cam Akers in Florida State. But Rayshawn Jenkins is a very good player now. He was with the Chargers prior to during the like right around the COVID years, and maybe a little bit before that, he was with the Chargers and was a 4th-round pick. Didn't retain him. And so the Jaguars signed 2 guys that didn't get beyond their first contract with him and Shaquille Griffin, and they all knew each other. So that's one of the good things, is that he got here and didn't have a great first year, had a real good second year, to the point where they're going to have some stuff to think about, especially if they don't get a young guy in there this year that's going to do anything, because I believe Jenkins signed a 3-year deal, so he'll be a free agent soon. Played extremely well last year, 2 plays. And I know he did way more than this, because before these 2 plays happened, we were talking in the press box. I forgot who it was. It may have been Demetrius Harvey for Jacksonville.com, Florida Times Jr., or it could have been John Shipley. I sit next to both of them in the press box, and we were talking about halfway through the season. We were starting to look ahead because the Jaguars were 2-6. And I said, we started looking at positions that they needed. And I mentioned safety as one of them. And everybody agreed. I said, I don't know if Rayshawn's going to hang around. Well, I thought he wasn't going to hang around. That's what I said. That day, I was like, I think he's going to hang around. I didn't think prior to the day he was going to hang around. But you know what? He's played really well. We said that before he started making these huge plays. We were in agreement that Rayshawn Jenkins had done a lot of good things. And in fact, his backup, Dewey Wingard, he's another dude that a year ago, everybody thought Dewey was going to be gone out of here, right? Well, they re-signed him, and Dewey ended up coming with one of the best things, some big plays and some slogans, that it was always the Jags. And now he's sort of ingrained in the culture of the fan base as sort of a fan favorite. So this is both of these guys are a telltale sign and a living example of why you don't just cancel out guys based on one season, and then you really don't absolutely know everything that's going on with someone and how the coaches see them and whether or not they're living up to their potential. I think both of them are, along with Andre Cisco, are just pure human examples of what a difference coaching can make with these players. So there were 2 plays that catapulted Rayshawn Jenkins, in my opinion, that made it really a no-brainer that he's going to be here, and he's going to be here for a while. If the Jaguars plan on making a little bit of run, he's going to absolutely be here a little while longer. I'm going to tell you what those plays are and the impact that they had and what player he reminds me of in segment 2. I'm going to make sure I get to that. I will, however, tell you this. I will let you know right now what games those plays were made in. One was made against Dallas, and one was made against the Chargers. Now, those 2 plays were surrounded by very good play, very good all-around play, solid tackling in the open field, all of that stuff. So it's not as if that's all that those guys did. That's all that he did. He did not do just that. He did a lot more than just that. And we want to talk about that in segment 3 and how that impacts another player who I already told you guys that I believe is an absolute superstar. So we're going to get to all of that here in just a second on Locked On Jaguars. Make sure you stand by and don't go away, because we're going to get to it in segment 2 after I let you guys know about today's sponsor, and that is FanDuel. You need to take your first swing at Major League Baseball. That's right, your first swing at Major League Baseball. And I'm going to tell you who can help you. I'm not much of a help to you, but FanDuel is. Because first of all, you can get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200, right? That's right. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. Now, baseball is in full effect, man. And you can play this game all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, you can get paid just like that instantly. There's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, which is America's #1 sports book. Now, here's the information I'm talking about. You got to find out about the bullpens. You have to find out what these pitchers' records are against the type of team that they're hitting. Then you make your wager, and FanDuel has all of the information for you. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, an official sports betting partner an official sports partner, an official partner of Major League Baseball. Boom, man. Tongue tied to death today, trying to make sure that I said that right. But shout out to FanDuel. Make sure you do exactly what I say and tap in and read up on all the information and find out about those bullpens, man, because that is critical in baseball. All right, so we're talking football here. We're talking Rayshawn Jenkins, Big Play Ray. That's my nickname I'm giving him today, and it's because I think he saved the Jaguars season on multiple occasions. The first time I think he saved the season, because remember, the Jaguars' final game came down to whoever wins that game goes to the playoffs. It would not have been the case had the Jaguars come into the game, and if they were, I wonder if they were a game ahead. So yeah, whoever won the game, the Jaguars needed to win a whole bunch of games down the stretch, right, to avoid getting into some sort of weird tiebreaker situation with Tennessee. And they won a lot of games down the stretch, some that they came from behind. The Raiders game, but the next two I'm going to mention are the most critical ones. The one to get into the playoffs was the game against the Dallas Cowboys. The game against the Dallas Cowboys, man, Rayshawn Jenkins got a pick at the end of a game. He caught a tip ball, and he had played well the entire game, by the way. He had made some tremendous plays, but he got a pick from Dak Prescott, and it was a walk-off because he took it all the way back to the house. We've throughout, in and out of traffic, right along the Dallas Cowboys sideline, and pointed towards the people in the north end zone and said, "We got him. Let's get out of here." And that stadium, he ran past all those Cowboy fans too that were up in the stadium, right, on that side of the field. Huge, huge play. Johnny on the spot. Luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So he was prepared. It was a good opportunity. And not only did he get the ball, but he took the ball and he scored. He went the other way with it. That was a huge, huge play. The other time he saved their season was in the game that decided who went to the playoffs and who was going to be AFC South champions. The Jags were losing unexpectedly late. It was a raucous crowd. I was watching on TV because I was in the nation's capital. I was in Washington, D.C., but I was watching it, and I couldn't believe my eyes, and I thought that they were going to blow Tennessee out. Didn't happen. They were actually losing to Josh Dobbs and the Tennessee Titans. Then he blitzes. And fans all year talked so much about the defensive ends going back in coverage, how they needed them to be the ones who were attacking the quarterback. Well, Rayshawn Jenkins comes off that slot, comes around that corner, gets home, hits the ball out of Josh's hands. Shout out to Josh Dobbs, too, being a rocket scientist. But hits the ball, the ball actually goes forward. They reviewed it to make sure it was not a lateral or wasn't a forward pass, which it wasn't. It was a fumble that just went forward. Scooped up by Josh Allen. Josh Allen ran down the sidelines for a go-ahead touchdown, and then the Jaguars were able to come back and close the game out. So that's two plays in the last, 7 or 8 games of the season, in a season where the Jaguars actually had to win both games. They had to win everything going down the stretch in order to make the playoffs. And he was a critical part of why they were able to do it. 2 really good plays on defense, one where he benefited from a tip ball, but he scored a touchdown, and then he created a fumble that allowed his teammate to score for a touchdown, thus the moniker Big Play Ray. What player does he remind me of? I'll give you one. How about Malcolm Jenkins? Doug Peterson knows a little bit about Malcolm Jenkins because Malcolm Jenkins played the similar role that Rayshawn Jenkins played last year for the Jaguars and that he's going to play this year. He played that similar role when the Philadelphia Eagles won the Super Bowl in 2017, in the 2017 season. He's very, very familiar with it, knows what it's supposed to look like. About the same size, a little over 6'1", maybe hanging around 210. And he absolutely plays the game that way. I wouldn't be surprised if we find out that Rayshawn Jenkins, I don't think he's related to Malcolm, but his last name is Jenkins, same sounding name and same style of play. Because Malcolm Jenkins used to come off that corner. He used to come off that edge and rush from that slot. But he also was a very sure tackler. And he was also somebody who was Johnny on the spot, always around the football and able to do things like the things that Rayshawn Jenkins was able to do. I just think that there's a little bit of a lack of appreciation for him because just think back to a calendar year ago, people wanted to run him out of town. They said, let's get another year out of him, but we need to replace him. Even this offseason, there was a whole bunch of talk about drafting Brian Branch from Alabama. And Brian Branch, while I think he'll be a good player, people wanted to pick Brian Branch this year when the Jaguars chose it. The original pick was 26. He ended up going in the 40s, right? And my thought the whole time was, well, he's not going to start in front of Jenkins, and he definitely ain't going to start in front of Cisco. So you're talking about him being a slot, but they're only in nickel 65% of the time. Can you use it? I wouldn't say waste, but can you use a first-round pick on someone who's not a full-time starter and won't be on the field in every single situation? If a team wants to go heavy, you got to take him out and put another linebacker in the game. And the Jaguars had some situations last year where they were loading up trying to stop the run, and they actually did play three linebackers. They actually had a Sam linebacker in the game. So it's a little bit different, man, when you have to spend money on high draft picks, but you already have guys on the roster that you really, really like. The Jaguars really, really like Rayshawn Jenkins. They really, really do. And I think they really, really like Rayshawn Jenkins, the professionalism, the approach, his style of play, way before he made that play against Dallas, and, of course, before he made that play against the Chargers. Against Tennessee. I think he's a very good player. I think he came back from injury. He redeemed himself. And I think he's going to have another big year this year. He's still a young player. And I hope he's one of those core players that the Jaguars decide that they need to keep around as they start going into next season, and they're going to start trying to restructure some guys and give some guys extensions and get them on a little bit of a bargain because they have so many people to sign. I'm going to tell you the impact I believe Rayshawn Jenkins will have on another really, really good player in that secondary. And that player is somebody that everyone who listens to this podcast knows that I have said I believe is headed towards being a superstar. I'll tell you all about that in just a second here on segment 3 on Locked On Jaguars. All right, running it down here on Locked On Jaguars. Just a quick recap of the first 2 segments. We're talking about big play Rayshawn Jenkins, big play Ray, as I want to refer to him, and we're giving him his flowers and saluting him on how he has played. He played in his second year here in Jacksonville and sort of redeemed himself in the minds of the fans. I think the coaches never lost faith in him. Who he reminds you of, the 2 big plays that he made that solidified his ability to make those plays in critical situations. And now in segment 3, we're going to talk about what his impact is on another player, and that is his running mate back at the safety position, that is Andre Cisco. Andre Cisco is the real deal. Andre Cisco and Rayshawn Jenkins, they're not quite built the same, even though they both look like they've been lifting weights. They got that penitentiary weight lifting. I know they ain't been to jail, but I'm saying that's what they got. You see their arms, and dudes look like they've been, roughhousing it a little bit in that weight room and putting in some sweat equity. And I think that's going to bode well for the team. The one thing I will tell you about watching them interact at practice and watching at minicamp and OTAs is this. Even though the veterans were excused for the last one, but every chance I've gotten, people gravitate towards him, man. Him and Cisco, they vibe, they get along real well, and you can see how the rest of the team sort of looks up to Jenkins. I actually had a player that I talked to, and when I mentioned Jenkins, he just shook his head like, boy. And if you're not watching YouTube, you can't see my face, but I'm going to tell you, he was like, man, Jenks can go. I think that's the overwhelming thought of a lot of players in that locker room, if not every one of them. And I also believe it's an overwhelming thought of the coaching staff. And I believe that the fans are late to the party a little bit because we see the game a certain way. And I say we because I'm including myself with folks that are outside of the locker room here. But, man, he can play. And I think he really, really has the he has the pulse of the locker room. He has the pulse of the defense. He's one of those dudes that I think really is a leader on that defense. I think he's one of the most vocal people. I think along with Foye Oluwakan, probably Josh Allen, I think they're probably, those three are probably the most demonstrative and vocal players on the team. He plays in the box. He can play split safety. He tackles well. He can cover. And in practice, he's always jumping routes. He's caught Trevor several times in some of the practices I've seen, especially in the training camp before last season, where he jumps routes, man, and almost gets picks, gets his hands on balls. So he's always playing as if he has the confidence in his ability to get the job done. So how does that help and impact Andre Cisco? Trust. If Cisco knows that Rayshawn will do his job. If you think back to this game against the Colts last year, and I brought this up last year when I was talking to the folks at last night when I was talking to the folks with Locked On Colts. One of the things about last year was the Indy game that was played in Indy. That's the last time y'all saw Shaq Quarterman, and that's not Shaq Quarterman, Shaquille Griffin, and he did not play well that game. He just didn't. Griffin didn't play well at all. I hope I've been saying Griffin this whole time and not been saying Shaq Quarterman, but he just didn't play well. And the game prior to that, I believe the game was before that against Washington, where Pat McAfee had kind of highlighted the fact that Terry McLaurin came to the sideline and told them, hey, man, they're playing cover two, but they're playing real undisciplined and they're loose, meaning the wide receiver was not getting jammed by the corner. Because he wasn't getting jammed by the corner, they thought they could beat the safety to the spot. And that's exactly what happened for more than one touchdown, right? When I talk about trust, I think Andre Cisco needs to know that the other guys in the secondary are going to do their job so he can spend all of his time doing his and not trying to recover and not trying to make up for somebody else's mistakes. Because football coaches, I've heard them say it all the time, just do your job. And what that means is, if you're going to try to make up for another guy, then I think that means both of y'all are making mistakes. So we might be able to get by with one guy making a mistake, even though they don't want that either. But we definitely can't get by with one guy making a mistake and then another guy putting on the Superman cape trying to be Captain Save a teammate, and then both of them end up making mistakes. So I think if Andre Cisco can just use that speed, and he is fast, and use that ability to separate receivers from the ball, use it to, create a situation where real estate isn't free, be able to jump more routes and play with more instincts because he's not worried about his buddy being out of position. That is how you can maximize and get the most out of those two players, especially Andre Cisco, as a benefactor, if you will, of the play of Rayshawn Jenkins. I think Rayshawn Jenkins is a really, really good player. And he sort of reminds me of, even though he's not quite the same type of player that Barry Church was, he reminds me of a guy like that that's steady, that's smart, that is always where he's supposed to be. Tayshaun Gibson was like that in 2017 and 18. Same thing, but Gibson's role is being played more by Andre Cisco. But that's it. When those guys can play well like that, and then that bodes well too for Tyson Campbell, because when you put all three, that's 3/4 of it. I just said I got two players that I think are very good players, and I think Tyson Campbell is right there. I think Tyson Campbell might be, out of all of the defenders, Tyson Campbell might be the highest rated defender of his position group in the eyes of, if you poll coaches and scouts, not necessarily some of these sites, because somebody had Tyson Campbell as like the 30th best corner, and I think that's absolutely ridiculous. But yeah, all of these guys as a group, if they play as well as I think they can play, they can elevate the Jaguars, they can elevate themselves, and they can elevate the way everyone feels about them. But it starts with Big Play Ray. Rayshawn Jenkins has changed the minds of people around here about his impact on the team, who he's going to be, what he's going to be, and Jacksonville should be very, very glad to have him. And you should be glad to join me every day on the Locked On Jaguars podcast, because it's your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. Make sure you're Next watch is Locked On NFL, which is your daily NFL league-wide podcast that is on the Locked On Podcast Network. It's on YouTube on Locked On NFL. Make sure you subscribe. If you want to see my mug or hear my voice on there, I'm with James Rapine every single Wednesday. You can make sure you tap in, like, and subscribe, and hit that bell also. We'll see you here tomorrow as we get closer and closer to training camp. The guys will be reporting, I think in about 18 days now, 18, 19 days, they'll get rookies in, and then they'll get veterans in right after that. And I think it's about 20 days before fans are actually sitting up in the stands and watching this team practice in the new Miller Electric practice facility. All right, until the next time, you guys take care of each other, and we'll see you here back on the Locked On Jaguars podcast.